In July 2002, Walkley Award-winning photojournalist Megan Lewis left her stable job with the Australian newspaper and her comfortable bed in Perth and drove 1,600 kilometres to live with the remote Martu people of the Great Sandy Desert and began documenting their everyday lives. The result of this mammoth project is a new book, Conversations with the Mob, launched recently in Perth.
When I first met them, I saw such beauty. I saw something I think we don't show in the media, and I think how it's dreadfully sad not to tell that story. It's photos of people that I have a deep affection for. These pictures have evolved through friendships and understanding. The Martu mob come from the Western Desert, which is the Great Sandy Desert. From Perth, it's about 1,600 kilometres north, which is a hard drive, 14 hours up to Newman and then inland 5 hours. They have 3 desert communities and a community on the edge of the desert, which is Jigalong. And there's probably about 800 people that are spread out across the desert and sometimes in the towns as well. It was a special night. We had a lot of people that really wanted to be here, and only half of the people that could have come were here. What always happens in the desert, there's a funeral, or it happened to be the wet season and some of the roads were out, so a lot of people had to stay behind, but a lot of people made an effort to get here, and to them it was something really special. We're all very close when we're up in the desert and we live that way, but it's the first time I've ever had them here with me, and it's nice to see their reactions. It was interesting how I got to meet the Martu. I'd been with the Australian newspaper and we got sent to other communities, and they were never really bad news stories, but they were interesting. One day we got a phone call to say, can you go and photograph the Aboriginal boys in the Western Desert up at one of the gold mines who are sponsoring the boys to play AFL in Perth. So I got sent up to do that, and almost instantly when I hit the ground and met these people, I thought, it was just a feeling in my stomach, just so there's something special here. It was something I couldn't quite describe. I felt like I knew them. And from that moment on, every break that I had from work, I would go back up to the desert and spend time with them, and basically building up a rapport and just, building up trust. When I drove into the community, what you see dogs that are some of them a bit hungry looking, and you see rubbish lying around. I guess I wasn't really shocked about what I would see. I was prepared for it. But it's a different thing altogether when you know you're not going back to a comfortable bed and you're going to stay here. And for the first couple of days you sort of think, oh, this is going to be a bit rough on me. And then you think, if I'm going to tell this story properly, I just have to get over it. For 2.5 years, my car was my home, and my swag my bed. So you got to appreciate any space on the ground where you could sleep. And sometimes I slept in the house with the coordinators there, other times I camped with the mob. Just wherever. You got to be non-attached to material things, not attached to comfort, just happy that you could lie down and have a sleep. For some people, they thought, oh, who's this white fella walking around with her cameras? But once they started to know me, they're like, yeah, okay, you're one of us now. After that, and that takes a long time to build up. This is the picture that we chose for the front cover of the book. It's a family that I know pretty well out in the desert, and we'd just finished a football carnival. And I think we chose it because it's a very bright, happy picture, and it sort of sums up the desert. People are on the move. And to get the shot, I had to ride on the back of the vehicle, which was a Land Cruiser, and I sat on the roof, but I didn't really know until we were travelling along that the vehicle didn't have brakes. And we went over a rise and down a rise, and it took me a while to be able to get off it because I couldn't get off until the vehicle ran to a stop by itself. So I had a 3K walk back to town. Was taking the pictures. I would come into town every couple of months when I had rolls of film needed to be processed. So I'd take them into the chemist, and he did a good deal for me and processed them. I would take the negatives back out to the community where I had my laptop and my scanner and start to scan the negs. And I thought, well, if the mob are being photographed, they need to know the whole process. They need to know what's going on here. And I'd always said to them they'd always know which pictures were going in. And they were fascinated. So they used to come in and sit there and watch me scan. And sometimes the boys would go through the negatives and say, yeah, I like that one. Why don't we scan that one? And sometimes they were right on the mark. This one here is a really special image because not many people get to see it. It's during a sorry time out in the desert, sorry time being a funeral time, where it's where the women and the family members grieve. This is a really special picture. It's one of the first ones that I ever took that was really the heart of the Mardoo. When I first went to the communities, they said the one thing you will never do out here is photograph a funeral. And I respected that, but having been there for 6 months and week after week, feeling like every week we had a funeral, and I saw the young men grieving so much and all the people grieving, but the young men expressed it by going to town and getting on the grog, and the white fellas in town are going, we don't want these black fellas in town drinking. And I thought, well, this is so sad. They don't know why they drink. And I said to the Mardoo elders, I said, if we don't show this, how is anybody ever going to have empathy? How are they going to understand how you really feel and how you can't cope with the grief? And they thought about it for a while and they said, all right, you can do this, you can take this picture. And the unusual thing about this image too is that they don't normally put the names of the people who have passed away on the graves, and they decided to do it for this family. And this is a father and son. I walk in here and I see the colours in the desert. It's like bringing the desert out of the desert and bringing it down here. It's bringing something that I saw to the people here. So for me, I've seen these pictures over and over again, but I always feel something special because the people in them are special, and it makes it so special when you see people who are complete strangers walk into this room and see these images and then send me emails and say that they were so touched, they felt so moved, that some people cried, and then they say, what can I do to help? And I think it's just a wonderful thing that renews your faith in humanity.
What a terrific story. You can see this moving exhibition at the Cadogo Art House Gallery in Fremantle until the 9th of May. After 35 years, Bill Viola is today regarded as one of the world's most important video artists. But what is it that drew him